Hello, everybody, and welcome to Movie Mandates. This is the show where my brother and I force each other to watch certain movies based on a monthly theme. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Andrew.
And this month's theme is the AFI 100. So we watched, 2 weeks ago, we watched my brother's pick, which was Amadeus. We both loved it. And then this was my pick, which was It Happened One Night. So I made Andrew watch that. And I got the pleasure of watching it again, too. Yay! But before...
So you'd seen this before?
I did. I saw it with Grossmutter. That gives you...
Yeah.
So I don't remember, terrible child that I am, when Grossmutter passed. But this was back in, like, Arizona, probably in 2006, when I lived with her for the year. So, but, you know, before we get on to that, it's only fair that since I mandated this episode's movie, that my brother gets to challenge me in a segment we call Trivial Trivia.
Okay. So everyone knows, except those who don't, but everyone except them knows about the AFI Top 100.
This is true.
Which is a list that has been updated over the years. But what some people don't know is that the AFI, the American Film Institute, has lots of curated lists.
Oh.
So they've got AFI top 100 songs in movies, top 100 heroes and villains, top 100...
Heroes and villains are on the same list?
Yeah, it's 50 and 50. I don't know why they didn't do 100 heroes or 100 villains, but they did 100 heroes and villains, 100 top 100 movie quotes. But what I found most interesting is their top 10. So they have top 10 movies from a couple different genres.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is see if you can name at least one from each. So the American Film Institute has named its top 10 animation films. Can you name one of them?
Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, 1991, Beauty and the Beast. That is one of them. Romantic comedy.
When Harry Met Sally.
Yes. Also, It Happened One Night.
Yes!
Western.
What's the one with the man with no name?
Well, there's three of them. The most famous being
it's not
Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
That's
Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and Good, Bad, and the Ugly, which surprisingly not on the list.
Then I'll go with Unforgiven.
Unforgiven's on there, yes.
Dang it. Okay. So
Sports.
Rudy.
Interesting choice. No, it's not on there.
Hoosiers.
No.
Hold on.
Oh, yes, it is. Okay. All right, sure. Hoosiers. Oh, sorry, Hoosiers. I dismissed you before even really looking. Hoosiers not going to be. Oh.
You're like, oh dear. That's how it's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like most things on all of AFI's lists, it's very white. So, all right, mystery.
Hold. I mean, a mystery.
AFI defines mystery as a genre that revolves around the solution of a crime.
Silence of the Lambs.
I would say it's not on there. I think they would probably categorize that differently, but
okay.
It's a fair choice.
Okay, let me think. Mystery. Well, it's not going to be Clue, although I love that film.
That's a good movie.
Is it? Oh, it's got to be an adaptation of And Then There Were None. 10 Little Indians, and then there were not. It's got to be an adaptation of one of those.
If it is, I'm not recognizing the title.
Oh gosh, this one's tough. Okay, and I have 10 movies to choose from.
Yeah.
Mystery. Apparently, I don't watch enough mysteries. Oh, Hannah, have I seen them?
You have two of them are directed by two different directors who are absolute scumbags.
Okay.
One's
So
not
what
even
has
allowed in
Bryan
the
Singer
country
done
anymore.
lately?
Bryan Singer's one of them.
Oh, and then
Another's
Roman
not allowed in
Polanski.
the Polanski's one of them too.
Is it Rosemary's Baby?
No,
What? Okay.
I
Bryan
wouldn't.
Singer, but
I
that's,
wouldn't.
I mean,
I wouldn't consider Rosemary's Baby a mystery. I mean,
right.
I guess it's not a solution, but well,
Was she screwed by the devil?
okay, sure.
The answer is yes. I just don't, my head is not, the pianist is not a mystery.
Nope. Couple Hitchcock films on here.
Oh, Rear Window.
Rear Windows on
Golly,
there.
Eisen, what is up?
Chinatown and The Usual Suspects were the ones they were hinting at.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, Chinatown. Jeez, Louise. Okay.
All right. Fantasy. A genre where live action characters inhabit imagined settings and or experience situations that transcend the rules of the natural world.
So I have my own fantasy list because Lord of the Rings has to be 1, 2,
I
and
don't
3.
know when this list was compiled.
If it's not on there, it's before.
It's not on there. I haven't seen anything later than 95 so far, I don't think.
Then I'll go with Pan's Labyrinth.
I think that
Which
was
is a
later than 95, but
masterpiece.
no. Oh, I'm sorry. Fellowship of the Ring is on there. 2001. I'm looking at 10 films and I'm completely blind.
Okay.
The one I was
like, how is Lord of the Rings not?
Yeah, Fellowship of the Ring is on there. The one I was raising my eyebrow at is Field of Dreams. I mean, yeah, that's okay, sure. They inhabit imagined settings and or experience situations that transcend the rules of the natural world. There's ghosts, sure. But I mean,
sure.
It's a Wonderful Life is on there. That's a bit closer, but Wizard of Oz, King Kong, Miracle on 34th Street, Harvey, Groundhog Day, The Thief of Baghdad, and Big are the other ones. All right. Sci-fi.
Dave, 2001.
Mm-hmm. I was like, Dave? The Kevin Kline movie?
No.
No way he'd be president.
You're like, that is science fiction in and of itself. Yeah, 2001.
All right. Ooh, gangster film.
Oh, Say Hello to My Little Friend. Scarface.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
No.
Oh, okay. I was about to say no because Scarface 1932 is on here, but so is Scarface 1983. So
okay. That one's gonna have Goodfellas on there too.
Yes, and Godfather and Godfather Part 2.
And Casino ?
No.
Oh, I went through a big Casino phase when it came out.
All right, courtroom drama.
Obviously, My Cousin Vinny. No, it's not on there.
It kind of should be, but no, it's not on there. I actually I did a second check just to make, because I'm like, I'd put that on courtroom. Well, it's a courtroom comedy. It's not a courtroom drama, comedy.
But I'd say Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Surprisingly, no.
12 Angry Men.
Yes, that is on there. I guess Mr. Smith is not really a courtroom drama so much. I mean, I could go either way, but
is To Kill a Mockingbird on?
To Kill a Mockingbird, the 62, yeah, that's on there. All right, and the last one, epic, defined as a large-scale film set in a cinematic interpretation of the past.
Is it Gladiator?
No.
Okay, good. I was about to be really upset for both of us. Okay, an epic. I want to say the Ang Lee film, the Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
No.
Look again. No, I'm joking.
I actually would have laughed if the Claudette Colbert Cleopatra film was on here.
Oh, jeez.
But it's not.
Epic 10 Commandments.
Yes, the 1956 10 Commandments. Also Titanic, Ben-Hur, Schindler's List, Gone with the Wind, Spartacus, Lawrence of Arabia, All Quiet on the Western Front, Saving Private Ryan, and Reds.
There we go.
So okay.
Reds, like retired extremely dangerous Reds. What is Reds?
I actually don't know. It's from
Because Helen
1981 though.
Mirren, maybe it's just red.
No, that's red.
Okay, that's just red.
I'm gonna guess it's the fighter pilot peoples. Let me see. Warren Beatty, Diane Keaton.
Oh.
Radical American journalist involved in the communist revolution in Russia. Oh, those kind of Reds. Okay. And hopes to bring its spirit and idealism to the United States.
Okay, different
okay.
red.
Different red. Okay, so
that was cool. Oh, I love that. I'm gonna go do some digging. I love lists.
I was thinking about doing something with the top 100 movie quotes and but I'm like that would just take forever to scroll through, or control F. I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
True.
So okay.
So here we are. It happened one night. So what is
over 3 nights? But
what happened? Well,
which night are they talking about? What is it? Because it happens over the course of, I think, 3 nights.
Right.
Because there's the first hotel room, the night in the hayfield, and then the second hotel room. So
the first night is like on the bus. Don't they sleep? Because then they get up and
they overnighted on the bus. So 4 nights. That's right.
On the bus. So I'm going to take you through some quick background for the movie before we start talking about the movie, because I find it fascinating. So this movie was 1934, which is, for film scholars would know, laymen won't know.
I would hope film scholars would know this, whatever you're going to say.
The code. So the production code was still being created. So 1934 is when Hays Code, I think, finally began.
Okay.
So this, and they were putting production things together for it. So it wasn't quite in the era of Hays Code yet, just to let you know where we are. This is also the time when production companies owned friends and actors and actresses. And Mr. Clark Gable was owned by Warner Brothers. They got upset at Warner Brothers. Now, here's the thing. This is all lore. The code and stuff is not lore, but the being owned by Warner Brothers is true. Columbia Pictures did this.
This was a Columbia Pictures, yes. Okay.
And
that's what I was looking up real quick. I was like,
yeah, so this is Columbia. And so basically Warner Brothers, because they were angry at Mr. Clark Gable, and Columbia Pictures was seen as a very kind of like not taken seriously yet. They were still smaller at that point. They rented a person, P.S. by the way, they rented a person to Columbia Pictures to punish him for turning down a role that they wanted him for at Warner Brothers. The Warner Brothers or MGM. Now I just made myself
second guess yourself.
Now all of a sudden I wanted to say MGM and I'm like, oh crap. Now I'm gonna have to look it up. Anyway,
that was a big one at the time too. So
one thing to know, he pissed off the studio that he was owned by, and they rented him out to Columbia. And they did this film. Capra and Claudette Colbert had their own.
Frank Capra, director of the film.
Tete-a-tete. They did not like each other.
I wasn't sure if this was a good thing or a bad thing.
Oh, but okay. No. So no, this is kind of like they're at each other's like.
Okay.
Yeah,
so is this a movie that nobody involved in wanted to do?
Exactly. There were so many. It was one of those.
And yet it won like 5 Oscars.
It is the first movie, again, 1934. What did I say? We're 94 Academy Awards in now. So like this was still early.
Mm-hmm.
However, this little picture that was meant to be a punishment to one actor, which was just kind of like thrown together, and a lot of people turned down these roles. A lot of females turned down these roles, and then Claudette had to take the role, and then she apparently had tantrums all the time, and it went on to get the big 5 awards. Yeah.
Clark Gable was loaned to this film by MGM as punishment
MGM.
for his affair with Joan Crawford. Apparently Columbia was considered a poverty row studio at the time.
This is what I'm saying.
But yeah, MGM and Warner Brothers would loan out their actors for real or perceived wrongdoings.
it was just like a way of sticking it to them, and this one apparently really backfired because this movie is,
I mean, it's on the internet. It must be true.
Right? So are we. So we don't.
We're on the internet. We must be true.
We must be true. So anyways, that's the background of the story, and the story itself is actually quite simple. You have a socialite, Claudette Colbert, who runs away from daddy because she eloped with some random New York guy that daddy doesn't approve of. And
he's a pilot.
yes, and so she jumps off a yacht to run away from daddy and go to her husband and be like, you can't, I'm an adult woman, meow, meow, meow. How she's going to then get to said husband is via bus. Clark Gable is a newspaper man who sees her and is like, oh, I am going to write a story about you, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm going to get accolades and money, and all I have to do is put up with your BS for a couple days while we ride together to New York, and then you can go off and see your husband. So that's literally, that is it. That is the story. And then unfortunately, the bus doesn't quite, one bus leaves without her and another bus gets a flat tire, and
drives into a swamp.
Yeah, because they're all singing about a guy in a flying trapeze, and I mean, it's a great scene, but it's just one of those, like, there's a lot of, like, it's a comedy of errors along the way.
That guy in the third verse, I think that's Frank Capra.
Oh, is it?
I think
so. Frank Capra, if he, like, came up to me and was like, "Hi, I'm Frank."
Well, if he came up to you, about all he'd say is brains.
Yeah, true. That would be awkward.
Everyone in this movie's dead now.
Yes, I'd be like, "Were you cryogenically frozen? You look great." Because honestly, I don't think that I've ever known what this man looked like. He's young.
In 34, he would have been a younger dude, sure.
Yeah, he's young. Good for him. Good for him. Him and his singing. So through the series of hijinks and trying to get her to her man, they fall in love. And just like every good love story, they're not very vocal about it, so they just fight with each other, and they're like, "Oh, he, me."
Are you telling me there's a miscommunication that causes plot problems?
Why can't people just be honest and say their feelings? Because it's so, I mean, it ends happily, but
it ends with a bang.
That it does. Trumpet playing, and maybe that's what see, that's the thing. Like, did that happen one night? Only one? Unfortunate.
Well, I mean, she does say at the end of the movie, "Promise me you'll never let me get off."
Okay, so I watched this movie. Okay, so my anniversary,
which I'm immature enough to giggle at because I was like, well, with this bozo, I'm pretty sure that's not going to be a problem.
So Jeremy and I had our 5-year anniversary, by the way, the other day.
I'm sorry. The full context is she's talking to King Wesley, the pilot, the guy she eloped with, and is going to officially marry now. She's trying to leave Clark Gable in the past, and she's like, we're going to have so many adventures. We're going to be playing on the merry-go-round of life, and promise me you'll never let me get off. I'm like, I don't think that's going to be a problem. This guy sucks.
Yeah, no, we snickered at that too. And I was like, that's not something that you want your significant other to promise. Just putting that out there.
Can do, baby.
So yeah. So brother, how do you feel about this film?
I think it's good, but not great.
Okay.
It's like Gladiator. I would have walked out of the theater saying, I mean, it's no best picture, but I liked it. It's a lovely, charming, very watchable, often very funny movie with charismatic, funny lead performances. My biggest issue with the film is the characterizations are a bit uneven and inconsistent, especially
Yes.
with our two leads.
Yes.
Okay. They seem to, I mean, we are multifaceted emotional creatures, but our leads, particularly Ellie, um, they just completely change personalities scene to scene. They're always entertaining.
Yes.
So it's not too terribly much of a problem, but it's like, I'm pretty sure they weren't going for their bipolar. But I mean, she switches gears to almost a completely different character scene to scene, and so does Clark Gable in to a lesser extent, and that I feel hurts the movie, at least as a full narrative experience.
I can agree with that. And I do agree with you that she is the one that seems to be quite different scene to scene. And she plays each time very well. But you're right.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
She's like, in this scene, I'm going to be bold and like, I don't need anyone. And in this scene, I'm just going to be,
happy and bubbly, like I'm high on uppers or something.
Yeah.
In another scene, she's like very almost prototypical femme fatale kind of presence and attitude. And you're like, where is this coming from? She is so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, and it almost, you can kind of, headcanon fill this stuff in because, knowing her, she's a spoiled little rich girl who has been controlled by her socialite life. And now she's just frantically experiencing and enjoying everything, and it's just sensory overload for her, and she doesn't know how to read. So my head, I'm doing the headcanon thing, but I don't think that was the intention of this movie, knowing that the director and the stars were miserable and didn't want to be there. Now I'm thinking, okay, it was probably like, all right, in this scene you're really happy, be really happy. All right, in this scene you're crying a lot. In this scene you're hyper and funny. And the kudos to Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. It didn't come through in their performances. They are professionals. They did their they may have been miserable, but they were doing their jobs.
I would agree. So here's what I was the reason I picked this movie, something that I think that we don't discuss enough on this podcast, and maybe we should make a note to do that, is why we picked the movies we picked. I picked it because I did see it long ago with Gross Mooter, and I remember really liking it a lot. And I always remembered the Walls of Jericho, and I remembered the tumbling down. Like, I remembered that very vividly, how the movie ended, and I remembered like that part. And I was very happy to rewatch it and find that for the most part it holds up, in that there doesn't seem to be, because you and I have watched some films that were like, ooh, maybe not just on this podcast but in life, because we like to rewatch films or just watch films in general. And those movies that you watched from your childhood, from the 70s or from the 80s or 50s, 60s, 30s, some of them you're like, oh gosh, because it was such a different time and expectations about women but like there wasn't any sort of racial tensions going on. Granted, there weren't a lot of black people in this film.
There's one, I think.
Yeah, but like there wasn't any sort of like, women can't, like, she wasn't treated. I mean, he did pick her up and slap her ass over a swamp,
there's a few moments,
but not enough to make it super cringeworthy.
Off-putting.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my god.
There's a couple moments that are clearly of the era, with man, just the kind of broad at the time socially accepted idea of gotta smack a woman and keep her in her place kind of an attitude. There's a little bit of that in there a couple of times, but again, my headcanon, you can, if you're close enough with someone, you can give them a playful slap on the ass. if you're close enough with them, this is not a thing to do with strangers.
No.
And arguably, the ass slap happens far enough into their adventure together where they've spent a couple nights together, not sexually, but, sleeping next to each other on the bus. They shared a hotel room. They're they're close. So, I can kind of playful slap on the butt, stop being a jerk. Or a twerp.
It was choreographed beautifully. So he has her, they're walking across
the piggyback rides.
Yeah.
This is not a piggyback ride. What are you?
He puts her over his shoulder, rolls up his pants, and carries her across a very
the shallowest stream I've ever seen.
Yeah. So, but he's, very gentlemanly as he has her flung over his shoulder. And she's talking about it being a piggyback ride. And he's like, which I'm just laughing. I'm like, what a random, hilarious.
Oh, my father used to give me piggyback rides all the time. I'm like,
this is not a piggyback.
This is not a piggyback ride.
So he has her over one shoulder and he has the bags in another hand. And he goes, here, hold this for a second. And he puts the bag in her hand, and then he just reaches around and hits her ass.
Swats around the butt.
All right, thank you.
Now, to be fair, that's almost a turnaround as fair play because she's also holding his shoes. But, he takes off his shoes, ties them together, and gets them. And she's holding him, and she's swinging him against his butt, and like kicking him in the butt with his own shoes. So it's almost a turnaround. It's not quite there presentation-wise. It is a bit sexist, but again, I like to make it more palatable by filling stuff in. But I actually do like that whole piggyback ride discussion thing because it's a great way of fleshing out her past and who she is as a character without doing a flashback or really what you're like, oh my God, her childhood sucked. Yeah. It's like, yeah, daddy wasn't giving you a piggyback ride.
No.
Another thing I like about this movie, which I don't think is entirely successful as far as setup goes, but the two father figure characters, Ellie's literal father and Peter?
Peter, the newspaper guy?
Yeah, Peter Warren. Yeah, Peter.
Like that.
Yeah, and Clark Gable, his mentor his boss at the newspaper.
Yes.
They both, you love these guys by the end of the film, and I feel like both those characters were underserved. Maybe one more, especially with the father, like maybe one more scene with both of them. Because it kind of comes out of nowhere. It's charming and you love them anyway, but I feel like that could have been built to better. Because there's a really wonderful moment where, okay, so the miscommunication happens where Clark Gable and Ellie, they're in their last night together, and Ellie confesses her feelings. And he brushes her off because he's a scared dork and she's also married.
Yeah, which again is such a sweet, like there is no infidelity. So it's quite sweet. Anyways,
so he changes his mind. He's like, you know what, phooey, I actually do love this woman, damn it. So he makes a very dumb decision, but a decision that, I could see a dude making a decision that stupid. Here's his plan. He's like, okay, I've got a great idea. I'm going to sneak out without telling her.
Right.
And I'm going to drive to because they're only like 3 hours from New York.
Away. They do establish this, which is very smart, that they're only.
So he drives to New York, sits in a coffee shop or something, and writes out his whole adventure story with the missing heiress and falling in love and all that kind of thing. And then he goes to the newspaper where his boss is, and he's like, I need $1,000 because, here's the story. It's a great story. It's going to push papers. I need you to buy it from me for $1,000 so that I can, well, one, have enough gas to get back. And because I'm out of money, I sold my hat to get gas to get here. And I, can't marry her with nothing. So, And he goes, okay, here's $1,000, go. And he drives all the way back 3 hours. And of course, by the time he gets back, she's already woken up and he's gone. So daddy and her fiance or eloped dude show up and take her away. So he completely misses her. So there's this So that's the final conflict at the end of the movie where she thinks he just ditched her.
Right.
And it's like, dude, you should have just woke her up and left a note, say, I'll be right back. But you could totally see someone going, oh, this is going to be so good, not thinking that one through. She's going to be so hyped. I'll totally get back in time. I could drive 3 hours, write a 5-page newspaper thing, get money, and then drive 3 hours back in 4 hours.
Right.
I don't think you thought of this very well.
I also thought it was very funny that, so he drives the 3 hours to New York and writes the piece and then goes to the newspaper, which is already hustling and bustling. And by the way, I don't work at a newspaper, in case y'all thought I did. I don't. So maybe at 4 or 5 a.m. it is as hustling and bustling as it is at this moment.
But considering they had to physically print the things that, they would, back in the 30s especially, they would have been,
they're overnighting.
They would have been overnighting it. There would have at least been crews. I don't know if the editor would have been there his boss, the EIC would have been there that damn early, but whatever. Movie doesn't work unless they're there.
Hey dude, you're up early.
But what's the Michael Keaton, Randy Quaid, Glenn Close paper? The Paper.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome. Marissa Tomei is in that. Glenn Close is in that. Before Randy went crazy, he was in that. Or maybe he was already crazy.
Maybe I don't know.
Better.
So
she calls Dad to come get her. Basically, she's like,
well, Clark Gable ditched me, so all right, I guess I'll just marry King Wesley.
Right, because now Dad is like, no, there has to be a real wedding, not just a phony an elopement is still a marriage, but Daddy wants a real wedding. So he tells, so they were gonna have this by the way, they're gonna have this really massive wedding out on the estate, and her wedding dress, first off, is
like a 20-foot train.
Holy crap, it's a beautiful dress, and you have to have 0 fat. I hate to say or just any sort of granted, also
don't sit or bend over,
don't sit, don't bend, it will show everything. I'm like, if her don't have a burrito, it looks gorgeous though, but it can be worn by maybe 2 people in the world. One of them was Claudette Colbert. I cannot tell you who the other one could possibly be. Maybe they exist. Angelina, maybe. Anyways, so they're getting married, and they kept saying, what was the word? They kept saying that King was going to come in on
some type of plane, I forget, a helicopter plane type thing.
But I had no idea what it was, because they kept saying, they're like, oh, he's going to make his entrance on and I should look for what that word is.
Aero gauge. I'm like, what?
I'm like, what is this? And then it just comes on a little plane.
Yeah, it's a little plane with a helicopter blade on. I'm like, oh, that must be the aero gauge or whatever it was called. Yeah.
I had no idea. So yes, Mr. Clark Gable goes to meet with Papa, he goes to meet with Papa to get money for rescuing said,
because there was she was missing. There was like a $10,000 reward.
So there was a reward. So Ellie hears that he's there, and she's like, well, good for him getting his reward, meow meow meow. And really, Clark Gable only asked for $36.90 or something
like that.
He wanted the food and the gas and his shoes.
He sold his suitcase and his hat.
He's like, and he had
just expenses. It's the principle of the thing. Because she ditched me for King Wesley, so I just want to be reimbursed for everything that this trip cost me. Exactly. I don't want the damn reward money.
Exactly. So it's so sweet. And then of course, the father figure who truly does love his daughter. It's just, sometimes when you have so much money and you don't know what else to do other than throw money at a problem. But at this is when you start to like the father.
You get the sense that wasn't trying as hard to control her as much as he was just deathly afraid of ever letting her go.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where the mom is.
I was gonna say.
I'm assuming she might have like just pieced out, took some money and run or died or something. But you can she's not even discussed. I didn't see any like family portraits or pictures in the background or anything. So again, I'm doing the headcanon thing.
Portraits or pictures anywhere in our house.
So I'm doing the headcanon thing where I'm like, to explain the father and why he's so controlling. It's like, he lost his wife for whatever reason. Could have even been his fault, and he's like doubling down and going out of his way trying not to lose his daughter, who he loves a lot, and that's why he comes off as an overbearing, controlling putz. But by the end of but that's not really in the movie. No. Even so, by the end of the movie, you really love the father character because you can tell he's like, this Clark Gable guy, big ears but damned, he's the one.
And he has that perfect, like, the 1930s, 40s physique, which is like, it's a good physique. Ben Affleck has that physique. I love it.
Clark Gable, sure.
Like, they're just square. So,
very square dude.
I like the square better than the V.
Just so he pesters Chloe. He's like, all right, I'll write you a check. One question though, do you love her? He's like, I'd be crazy to love her. Yeah. Do you love her though? He's like, well, that's a matter. It's like, dude, do you love her? He's like, yeah, I love her, and I'm a stupid dum head. He's like,
no, he says, yes, I love her, but don't hold that against me.
That's what it is.
So he's yelling at the father, yes, I love her, but don't hold that against me, because he's like going off about what a ungrateful, la 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 that she is. And so the father is walking her down the aisle, and he's like, yeah, so he loved you, and there's a car.
I'm just waiting for you over there. Yeah, if you change your mind.
If you change your mind, whatever's going on, just you do you, darling.
And what's really wonderful, especially as character development, is he's giving her the option. He's not pushing her. He doesn't even object to the way if anyone has anything to say, speak now for every holiday. And he's like, yeah, because he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
good for you, man.
Like this guy. Again, another thing, it's like they could have done a little bit more with this character throughout the movie, I think, to really build up to that. Because I'm having to work overtime to fill in stuff.
The one thing I agree with you on character development, and we'll get to the fun end of the movie in just a second. But the thing is, and you might be better suited to knowing the answer to this than I am, only because I don't know the answer, so you would be better suited. There were scenes in this movie that if this movie were to be released now would 100% be cut. The flying trapeze.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
There are some lingering, and not like Marcia Gay Harden amazing lingering moments, but there are lingering moments that you're like, that was 7 seconds I didn't need. You could have, and then they fade out and you're like, you started that fade way too late. So there's a lot in it because it's an hour and 40 minutes, which to me from 34 might be a long sit.
And especially for a screwball comedy.
Yes. So giving a little bit more flesh to
they would have chopped that down to 90 minutes. Yeah, the flying trapeze, the musical they're on the bus and they're just singing sea chanties or whatever. Right. And it's a 4 or 5 minute section of the film. They're just having fun.
They're just having fun. But here's what I was going to ask you. They're in Broadway back in the day. So the golden era of Broadway, in every musical, there was a showstopper number. Granted, we're talking about musicals here, so one would expect. But when I say showstopper number, I mean comes out of nowhere, completely like Vegas type outfits and stuff, and then it goes back to the story. And and I was wondering, was that something that happened in film that you know of? Because it did the sea shanty. It is a very sea shanty fun scene.
It's not a sea shanty, but it's that kind of a feeling. It's that bar song that everybody knows. It's like 99 bottles of beer on the wall,
and that everyone has like a different interpretation of a chorus. Because they did three verses. Pardon. they did 3 verses, and and people were laughing at the lyrics as people were singing them. And I think to myself, this could be one of those songs that we all know it. It's a little different, like the little bunny in the wood, little man by the window stood. Like any of those nursery rhymes that we knew as kids, like we all know them just a little bit different. Was that something that had to be in films? Like, were there things like every film has to have like a music? Like,
no,
just,
not a no.
like there was a lot of that.
Normally when that would happen, it would be because MGM or Warner or someone landed a star who was known for their pipes or for their musicianship.
Right.
So they would, well, I mean, it's like casting Donnie Yen in a movie. You're going to have him punch and kick something, you know?
One would assume.
Right.
Or hope. But then I've seen Idina Menzel be cast and they don't have her sing.
Not saying, like, yeah, exactly. You would not, generally speaking, if you cast Idina Menzel or something in the 1930s, she'd be singing something and you'd stop the movie cold to have her do a full production, whether it had anything to do with the story or not. Right. It's Rio like, Bravo.
I had no idea who these people were.
Yeah, Rio Bravo does it. Was it Ricky Nelson, I think? Let me IMDb that real quick, make sure I got the right dude. It doesn't really matter, but Rio Bravo, you know, John Wayne movie. They stopped the movie cold for, oh, well, Dean Martin's also in it, but who's the other guy? Yeah, Ricky Nelson. So, you know, they have people known for guitar noodling and singing, and it's like, oh, the bad guys are going to break into the town and kill everybody, but I got this guitar, and I'm Ricky Nelson, this is Dean Martin, so we're going to stop for 5 minutes and just sing, because the audience would be pissed if we didn't.
Yeah. That's what this felt like. But
so that's what this felt like. But I did not, other than I'm pretty sure the third one was Frank Capra. I didn't, now, granted, this is 2022 and this was 1934. This was, you know, 90 years ago. Right. But I didn't recognize the band, and I didn't recognize any of the singers. So if this was a known group at the time, I didn't. I also looked at the credits and I'm like, I'm not, I don't know, not recognizing names here. So, but normally that would be the case of, hey, we managed to land this known musical talent, so we're going to make use of it.
Yeah, you explain that much better than I.
But it does feel like that kind of scene. It's like, hey, we got this group, and I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so we talked about, whoops, that is the so we talked about the father and how you, because at the beginning of the movie, he's just the controlling dad that she's running away from.
And kind of a wimp.
Yeah, and they cut back to him a couple of times with, I need to find my daughter. Hurry up, drive faster is his thing. You know, he's in a cab. Can't this thing go any faster? He's in a plane. Can't this thing go any faster? That's kind of a funny running joke, but I still felt they could have done more with the character. The other one, which we didn't conclude, was the newspaper dude. Sure. So as soon as he gives Clark Gable the $1,000 and he leaves, he finds out that Claudette Colbert, Ellie, had called her dad and asked to come home. And he's like, that son of a gun, he swindled me. Yeah. That palooka, wonderful 30s lingo in this movie. So he gets really mad and he changes the front page, and then Clark Gable, once he finds out that Ellie has gone back to her dad, he drives back to New York, goes the thing, returns the money, and the guy's like really nice to him. He without making him admit what happens. It's, you know, he's like, instead of she dumped you, it's like sometimes the, you know, story didn't work. He's like, yeah, it was just a joke. You know, it's like, yeah, I know. It's fun to fool around with your friends sometimes, isn't it? But, you know, no harm, no foul. So you gonna be okay? He's like, yeah. Hey, you know, stop by if when you sober up, you know.
When you sober up, come back.
When you sober up, because you were clearly drunk and just fooling. When you sober up, you know, come on back and maybe I'll have some work for you. It's like, you know what? This is a pretty cool guy. Yeah. I also, for some reason, I love his secretary. The one who keeps accepting all the collect calls.
Oh my God.
Would you please? I mean, she doesn't do anything, but her just completely flat performance amused me to no end. in this
she's
movie.
like,
I don't know
he's
why.
like, stop accepting, and she's like, he
Okay.
just turns around like, okay, I'm gonna do it. It's Clark Gable. Have you seen his square-like shape?
Okay, so biggest problem in the movie for me, and let me know if this was an issue. So the movie starts out with Claudette Colbert and her father arguing over the fact that she eloped with King Wesley, and his name is literally King, like Andrew Kelly King.
Right.
Yeah. Which is a
If
weird
you are
name.
going where I think you're about to go, holy crap, it bothered me too.
Okay.
So please continue.
So at this point in the movie, we've not met King. We
Correct.
don't know what he looks like.
Correct.
So she jumps off the boat and swims to shore and runs away, and she's going to go to New York. And via bus, because they wouldn't expect her to take the bus because she's a rich socialite. She'd take a fancy train or something, right? So she's at the bus station. Cut to Clark Gable in the phone booth on the phone arguing with his editor with a entourage of people surrounding him going like, oh man, listen to him arguing with the editor. This is great. This is funny. And so he gets out of the elevator phone booth. And he's like, okay, my minions, does my chariot await? And they say, yes, king, make way for the king. And they escort him to his bus, which is the same bus that Claudette Colbert's on.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait, he's king?
Yeah.
Is this a flashback? Is this how they met and what led to their eloping? Okay, I would have appreciated some doodly-doo to indicate this was a flashback. But as it goes on, I'm like, no.
And no one ever calls him king again.
Again, ever.
And he doesn't have an entourage.
Ever.
Again.
And
that was my part too. I'm like,
and then and it's solidified the next day where he has the paper and it's like, oh, okay, woman jumps off, socialite jumps off boat and is now missing. I'm like, okay, that was a really, really poor choice to have these people make way for the king when you have the oddly named, maybe not oddly for the 30s, but the oddly named king who we've never seen a picture of and never met. And then you introduce Clark Gable and you call him king. I think that's the guy. And I'm like, well, wait, are we flashing back?
Star of the movie. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I had seen this before, but like I said, I didn't remember everything. I just remembered liking it and thinking it was wholesome. Yeah. And then that happened and I was like,
that was a bad choice.
I don't remember.
Very confusing.
I was like, I don't remember them being married at this moment. Why are they? Yeah, it was a very poor choice.
Okay.
Yes, please continue.
Couple things I want to hit on before we wrap up.
Yes.
Number one, the first night they spend in a hotel room divided by the wall of Jericho, which is a blanket over a clothesline to separate the two beds. Mm-hmm. Is shot once they turn out the lights and go to bed. It's filmed in the dark with only the light coming in from the windows. And this is a black and white movie. So that is some incredible cinematography that they managed to light the scene in a way where it was dark, but you could also see the actors. Normally, black and white movies do not do dark scene. There's always a light on somewhere because it's black and white and it's hard to see in the dark, or they fake the dark.
Yeah, they do.
They just kind of pretend that it's dark. Yeah. This was dark and it still works. So I just wanted to point out some of the cinematography, particularly that scene, stuck out to me as really, really good. The ending scene. So she runs away from her wedding to King Wesley.
Object.
He doesn't object.
She objects for herself.
He allows her to make her own choice, which is good and also subtle. It's not there. Aha! I have character growth. It's just there and it's good and I like it. Yeah. And then she gets in the car and drives away. And interestingly, that's the last we see of our lead actors. You hear that they got married, and then it cuts to a little vacation bungalow where they're honeymooning, and the caretakers of the bungalow are talking to each other, and they say, yeah, it's really weird that did you see they had the blanket up between the things? And yeah, and he asked me to go get a toy horn from a toy store because he's talking about the wall of Jericho being taken down by Joshua.
Yeah.
Joshua with the horn taking the wall down. I'm like, okay, they're boning. That's a pretty clever way to talk about it without well, you couldn't do much in the 30s, but and then they ruin it. They go too far. They cut to the inside where the wall of Jericho blanket actually hits the floor. And it's like, oh my God, I get it.
Oh, see, I thought that was so cute. I'm like,
I thought that was a step too far.
oh.
So they're talking about the horn with the knocking down the Hall of Jericho. I'm like, that's good. And then you hear that. I'm like, I'm surprised that a child's toy horn actually makes that noise.
Yeah.
I'm like, little far, but and then they cut the inside with the blanket drop. I'm like, oh my God, they're fucking. I get it. Come on, movie.
They're finally allowed to see each other naked.
They do that so many times in movies of that era. For the next couple of decades, my favorite example is North by Northwest, I think.
Have not seen.
Cary Grant. What's her name?
We should definitely have a Hitchcock month.
I can't remember, but she's 20 years younger than Cary Grant because this was the 60s, and it's like, okay, yeah, Cary Grant's in his.
It was.
No, it wasn't Tippi Hedren.
I'm gonna, because Uncle Don loves this actress.
Let me. Do I have the right movie?
On
North by. Is it Eva Marie Saint? Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's not the woman I'm thinking of then.
Yeah. Anyway,
doesn't matter.
Cary Grant was probably in his 50s at this point. This movie was 59, so he's in his 50s. She's like 30 maybe. And so it's the one where they're stuck on the Mount Rushmore and they're falling off the face. It's that movie, right?
Yeah.
Very end of the movie, they're on the train going home and like, oh, I love you, pan out, and the train is going into a tunnel, and I'm like, oh my God.
Okay, well,
I get, fading out on them kissing, I get it. That's fine. No, do you get it? Train in the tunnel. They're fucking. I don't want anyone to go home not understanding that they're fucking.
That
I'm like, okay,
happening at the end of this movie. No, I liked it, and that one wasn't. So a train entering a tunnel might be a bit far for me.
That was too much. This one I was like, it didn't need the blanket drop. I got it. I remember the Wall of Jericho. That was set up very well. I got it. Little too far for me.
Yeah, but
it's kind of like that thing in. Have you watched She-Hulk episode 2 yet?
He is a high-yo.
The scene where
Happy Christmas, everyone. We're talking about She-Hulk.
Yeah, we're recording this in August, so it was a great show, wasn't
it? Oh my gosh, so good.
She's talking to Bruce about representing Emil Blonsky, the Abomination. He's like, that was so long ago. I'm a different person now. Literally. I'm like, okay, I get it. I didn't need the literally. I get it. I mean, it's just like, do you get it? I liked her cheat to the. She's like, that worked for me. But sometimes you just trust your audience. Trust your audience, and if they don't get it, fuck them.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
overall, so the movie doesn't. So it happened one night. I have some structural issues with it. But overall, it's a charming, fun movie and often very funny. And overall, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're like, I have some notes that
I have notes,
the actor.
But everyone's dead, so I have no one to give them to.
Oh my goodness! Oh well, that was exciting. I liked it. So, all right, this ends AFI 100 month. Yay! Only 98 more movies to see. No,
I think I've seen 44 of the initial list of top 100.
I meant to look at that, and I did not. But if you've seen 44, I'll say that I've probably seen around that much, probably too. I'd like to say that I've seen more, and maybe one day I will, but
Well, that's the thing. I've never specifically gone out of my way to watch the AFI Top 100. It's just actually, browsed the list a couple of weeks ago when we decided to do this theme. And I was like, I wonder how many I've seen. I count. I'm like, oh, I have 42. Now it's 44.
Yeah, well, when we chose this theme, I knew immediately I wanted to rewatch this movie. It was just one of those that I'm like, I think I need to see it again and see if it holds up and see if it's still just as like, charming or cute as it was. And it did.
Yeah.
Of course, best AFI 100 is obviously Shawshank Redemption. So, but we didn't need to watch
I think they have Citizen Kane at number 1.
I know Shawshank I think is like 72,
which
and I'm like, really,
I've seen
guys?
Citizen Kane and it's good. It's good. But it's weird because it's very directorially and cinematographically wise butchered that one uneven. I mean, I think it's Wells's first directorial effort.
So the beautiful thing about I cannot confirm nor deny, but it sounds about right. But the thing that I can say about Citizen Kane and why it probably feels so for lack of a better term, choppy in like how it goes about each scene is because they were experimenting with a whole bunch of new styles of lighting and camera. And so a lot of the scenes were like, we've never had cameras that can do this before. Let's do something with it. So like technology had come to a point that, Wells and everybody were like,
they're doing like split diopter shots and weird animated matte paintings to simulate movement of large crowds, which is great.
Weird angles and shadows and just a whole bunch of stuff that
there is some absolute genius stuff that feels like the product of a director who's been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
And then there's some stuff I'm like, oh no, that doesn't work at all. What were you thinking? Yeah. But maybe we'll talk about that movie another day.
Another day.
Before you announce next month's theme, did you catch the editing mistake in
Yes, she was leaning against the wall and then started to leave, and then it cuts, and then she's still leaning against the wall, and she starts to leave again, and I'm like,
is it the scene where he's undressing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's about to take his pants off.
And she's like, oh, shoot, and leaves.
Yes.
And then so he's like, well, I'm going to take my pants off. And she's like, ah. And then it cuts to focus on her, and she's standing there, and then leaves. And I'm like, but to be fair, this is back in the days when it was shot on physical film and it was edited literally with scissors and tape.
Yes.
This stuff was really hard. So that may have been crap. Well, can't really do anything about that now, but
But yes, 100% I caught it. I was like,
okay, give us a new theme that I don't know what's coming. And based on what you announce as the next theme, I will, off the top of my head, mandate a movie for us to watch.
Absolutely. So give it a really good think. And by really good, I mean maybe take 4 seconds because we're at 57 minutes.
Yep.
Movie mandates. It's going to continue in January. You know what January is? A new year. And so New Year's resolution is our theme. So we're going to start with Andrew's mandated movie, which is...
Have you heard of Beyonce? Up and comer. I don't know, kind of like underground.
She's really kind of new, right? Like okay, yeah, I could see what she's all about.
Okay, so I've heard of this up and coming niche musical performer Beyonce, but I have no idea what she sings or what her vocal stylings are like. So we are going to watch Black is King.
Dude, I'm so excited.
Which
I have not seen it.
As far as is being billed as a film. I mean, it struck me as a visual album, but it's being marketed as a film. So, okay. And I don't know, maybe all seriousness, I know exactly who Beyonce is, but
I'm pretty sure that they could cut through that sarcasm.
Yeah, I'm sure I've heard some of her music, but I could not name a Beyonce song. And I've been meaning to. So my New Year's resolution is I should expose myself to Beyonce.
Find out what all this fuss is about.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing with Billie Eilish. She has a thing on Disney Plus called Happier Than Ever, a love letter to Los Angeles, but that's being billed as a a concert movie
Mhm,
and
mhm,
not an actual film. So we're gonna go with Beyonce's Black is King.
Very excited. All right, and where is Black is King available for people to watch so that
Disney
they can?
Plus.
All right, so at time of recording, it's on Disney Plus. Honestly, don't think it's going anywhere.
Probably not.
It is, after all, this little known artist Beyonce. I really think she has a future, though.
Yeah, I hear. I think she's going places.
I think she does. All right. So until then, watch the movie so you can listen with us in a week. And until then, you can listen to Movie Mandates on YouTube or in podcast form on iTunes. And I'm Kelly, and you can follow me on Twitter at GetEisengard.
And I'm Andrew. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen.
And we hope you all enjoyed this episode of Movie Madness. Movie Madness? That is not the name of our podcast, but I don't know how to read. I'm dyslexic, so
I'll have
try
to contact
again.
Lindy to change the art.
Like, all of a sudden she's like, wait a minute, I have to change the marquee. Okay, this has been Movie Mandates. And we'll be back with another mandate movie.
Bye, everyone.